Good evening, dear viewers. Hello and welcome to a new edition of Business Insider. I'm your host for tonight, Mohammed Abdelrahim, and tonight we'll be talking about the economic pressures the European Union is applying on Israel, or trying to apply on Israel in order for it to stop its barbaric aggression against the Palestinians in Gaza. A shift in the EU stance? Perhaps, yes. How big of a shift is it? How effective will it be? Will there also be an economic pressure from Israel's main ally, the US? Will that happen? So we'll be talking economy, yes, the economic pressures Israel is facing right now because of its war on the Palestinians in Gaza, and because of the changing, entre parenthèses, the changing stances of the international community towards Israel. And we have with us here in the studio tonight Ambassador Medhat Miligy, the former Assistant Foreign Minister. A very good evening to you, Mr. Ambassador. Thank you for joining us. Always a pleasure to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, sir. And please allow us, as we always do in this program, first to watch a report about our main topic for tonight. And please do allow us this also, dear viewers. And when we come back, we will start our discussion.
EU top diplomat Kaja Kallas has said after a meeting of the bloc's foreign ministers that the European Union will review a pact governing its political and economic ties with Israel due to the catastrophic situation in Gaza. International pressure on Israel has mounted in recent days amid complaints about the lack of humanitarian aid reaching Gaza, and as Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's government launched a new military offensive in the enclave. Kallas said a strong majority of the ministers' meeting in Brussels favored such a review of the agreement with Israel, known as an association agreement, in light of events in Gaza. Diplomats said 17 of 27 EU members backed the review, which will focus on whether Israel is complying with a human rights clause in the agreement, and was proposed by Dutch Foreign Minister Casper Veldkamp. Kallas told reporters that the situation in Gaza is catastrophic. The aid that Israel has allowed in is of course welcomed, but it's a drop in the ocean. He added that aid must flow immediately without obstruction and at scale, because this is what is needed. The EU accounted for 32% of Israel's total trade in goods globally in 2024. About 34% of Israel's imports came from the 27-member bloc last year, while about 29% of the country's exports went there.
All right, thank you very much, dear viewers, for staying with us, and many thanks to Abir Hussein and Rasha Abdelhamid for this report. And we're back here with Ambassador Medhat Miligy, the former assistant to the foreign minister. Now, Mr. Ambassador, we're talking about a change in stance. Do you see a real change in stance towards Israel because of its aggressions on the Palestinian civilians? From the part of the European Union, first of all, a real big shift?
Well, there is a shift, definitely, of course, but we cannot describe this as a real big shift. Maybe there is also a big difference between what we see in the media and on TV screens regarding the position of the people, which is totally different from the administrations. What I want to say is that the administrations are still reluctant to call things the way they should be called. I mean, if we are talking about what we talked about earlier in this show several weeks and months ago, about a plausible genocide being committed on the Palestinians in Gaza, the EU so far institutionally do not want to recognize this as a genocide. Why is that? Of course, we understand why, because of the ties that links it to Israel from the very beginning, but also because of the repercussions of such, of using such a term on the juridical point of view, on that, because they cannot, if they call it a genocide, then all kind of relations has to stop with this genocidal state, which they don't want to do. But from the people position, we've seen a real shift, a breakthrough, I could even call it. And I believe that this will have an impact on the relations of the EU with Israel on the medium and long term, but unfortunately not on the short term. And since we are, I mean, as we always say, time is gold, now time is blood. Unfortunately, we cannot afford to wait for this medium-term shift from the administrations, because this is costing us blood and people who are dying. Unfortunately, even the numbers of people who are dying in Gaza are not being noticed anymore. We are talking about approximately 100 per day.
Yes.
Sometimes it increases, sometimes it decreases, but it's around 100. And yet we are still talking about the necessity of humanitarian aid to enter to Gaza Strip and Israel. We've seen the catastrophe when Israel tried with the United States to control this, and they couldn't, unfortunately. They even ran away from it. We've seen the scene on TV, and it was actually an excruciating scene to see the people, the starving people, doing like that. It's not a secret that people are really dying from hunger right now. And this is, of course, it's becoming the first priority. But this is not actually what should be the first priority. The first priority is to force Israel to stop its aggression. And in order to do so, this is when it comes the economic part, because this is the only language that Israel will understand when they see a serious blockade on its economic ties with the EU. So far we've seen suspending some negotiations about future strategic partnership, but this does not affect the current situation in any way, because the situation so far is still going. I mean, even although that we are seeing this from the UK, as we started, and later on UK with Spain and France, but still the UK until today is the one, I mean the second country, I believe, or the third after Germany and the US, who is delivering weapons to Israel. So what are we talking exactly about? The idea, once again, I will repeat the same thing, the idea of just giving the Arab world and the Islamic world and the Palestinian just word of sympathy, while the actions are with Israel, this is what we cannot accept and we should not accept. But these are the situation. And I don't want us to fall in this trap that the EU, until this moment at least, and I'm talking still administration-wise, are really doing something to help the Palestinian. We don't see their impact on a ceasefire. We don't see their impact on any kind of sanctions. The impunity of Israel is still going on. So I don't think anything is changing on the short term, as I said before.
Yes,
but we have to, once again, to push more the EU to take more concrete actions towards Israel.
Yes, Mr. Ambassador, and backing up what you said, there's a group called the EU Staff for Peace, which wrote a letter to the leaders of the European institutions criticizing the bloc of what the group called little or no meaningful action in response to the humanitarian crisis in Gaza.
Too little, too late, as they call it.
So as you said, I mean, they are suspending future, potential future strategic partnerships or deals or whatever, but nothing is meaningful is happening on the ground that could affect the situation.
Maybe we could add one more sentence here, and I think this should be the most important one. Is the EU capable of doing so, yes or no?
That's a very important question as well. And yeah.
I believe the answer would be yes, they are very capable of doing so. You want to have an example?
Yes.
Ukraine.
Please.
Ukraine, in 2 weeks, the sanctions were applied, fortunes of Russians in the European Union were seized and confiscated, the ties with Russia, the economic ties with Russia were burst. And we are seeing such a strong, capable EU doing what it takes to be done. I mean, towards an aggressor, to defend the aggressed people of Ukraine. And we actually supported that because as I said before, Egypt have one external politics and does not exterior politics. It does not have two words. It does not have
double standards.
Double standards. The way we see Ukraine, and actually we have proven this in the United Nations when we voted with the countries that voted that this is an aggression and that Russia is an aggressor, and it's the same stand we took when it was about Israel. And I believe there is no difference. This is the main problem here with the EU, that the EU do not want to take or to call things the way they are. Why is that? Because there is a lot of...
But can we really talk about the EU as one united bloc, at least regarding the Gaza situation? I mean, we see countries, for instance, like Spain, like Ireland, like some Scandinavian countries who have a very supportive position of the just Palestinian cause, and we see other countries, I don't know, perhaps like Hungary or
Czech
Germany,
Republic,
or to a lesser
Austria.
extent Germany, yeah, who have a very different position. I mean,
I was about to speak about this. Actually, the EU is torn between several things. I mean, first we have internal differences. And here we can talk, I mean, these expressions, we can use them whether we are talking internally in each country and externally between countries and each other, depending on the majority of the people. So we are talking about internal differences. We are talking about humanitarian concerns. We are talking about
the French have shown, sorry for interruption,
No.
I think they have shown real concern for the humanitarian situation.
But this is not enough. This is exactly what I do not accept from the EU. The idea of just feeding the people while leaving them to be killed is just like feeding them to be slaughtered. And this is totally unacceptable.
And the UK, as you hinted, Mr. Ambassador, has also had a strong position in support of the just cause of
this is very relative when we are talking strong. Strong compared to what exactly? Is it strong compared to the Chinese vision of the issue, or the Arab issue, or the Spanish even, one of the countries, or Ireland? No. I mean, we are talking stronger, I mean, vis-a-vis what it used to have. And this is what I'm against. The idea is that the Europeans, and I'm talking about here the main European countries, and I'm talking here mainly
France, Germany,
UK, and those countries are very reluctant to take serious measures, as I said.
Italy, of course, Spain,
of course.
yeah.
And those countries, actually, they are the main players because they are the main supplier of arms, European supplier of arms to Israel. And they have very, I mean, it's a big web of ties between
Are
these
the weapons
countries.
still being supplied, or have we seen a halt in European supply of weapons to Israel? I heard Germany saying, for instance, recently...
Germany have sent, and the UK have sent. And the idea is that it's a partial thing. I mean, we will not supply these arms while they supply others. And this is the idea. It's the idea of showing a certain diplomatic movement that would ease the position internally vis-a-vis the
public
people,
opinion,
the public opinion, who are against what's going on, and against this slaughtery that is going on there. And on the other hand, showing the Arab world that we are on your side and we understand the case. But actually, I don't want to be sarcastic, but there is a theater, a piece of theater that I have seen of a famous Egyptian actor, Mohammed Subhi, when he was standing still, and when they asked him, why aren't you moving? He said, no, I'm moving, but I'm moving inside my shoe first. And that's exactly what I'm seeing from the EU. They are moving internally. I mean, what they are doing, I mean, let's talk about what they are really doing. I mean, how are they affecting the course of events on the ground? And this is what I will call a decisive change of position. When I see a change on the ground due to the European pressure, economically, since we are talking
how
about
heavily,
politically.
Mr. Ambassador, I remember, by the way, that piece by Mohammed Subhi in the theater. I remember it very well. How heavily is the war on Gaza weighing economically on Israel, or is it?
Of course. I mean, the performance, the Israeli performance, economic performance in the last 2 years have declined dramatically. The reverse immigration have increased to higher levels that we haven't seen before. This shows to which extent that the Israelis do not have enough confidence in their own economy. And the position doesn't look good economically, and any country would be as bad as Israel is doing, except that Israel is having unlimited support and refilling.
And that's why I said, or is it? Because I
they
mean,
have a refill.
is the U.S. support filling this these economic hardships?
Of course. I mean, Israel did not complain one day from lack of military supply, because there is a bridge between the U.S. and Israel. Not to mention Europe. Europe is actually traditionally have always been a supporter of the American policies in the Middle East. They never had really an independent vision towards the Middle East, different from the one of the U.S.
Do they have an independent one now? Or are they just starting to walk in their own shoes?
We don't have the luxury of time to see the effect of these changes. We've seen how President Macron of France, what he said after the visit to Al Arish.
Yeah, he seems very sincere. I mean, really.
Sincere and shocked.
Yeah.
It's like, as we say in Arabic, those who have seen are not like those who have heard. I mean, seeing with your own eyes is really shocking, and that's why, I mean,
seeing is believing.
When you see how his eyes were open when he was explained how things are, I mean, we've seen atrocities that we cannot believe it even exists with the lowest of humans. I mean, imagine that there is a platform in Israel right now for Israelis and tourists to go and watch while the war machine of Israel is being bombarding the city and killing people. Imagine that you are having a platform. This is something that, I mean, the humanity have stepped away since the Colosseum and the Roman Empire to watch beasts killing people in front of, for the amusement of the public. And this is what they are doing. They're doing, you know, like those binoculars so you can see up close when they are killing people. What is that? I mean,
I mean, you've said it clearly, Mr. Ambassador, and I like the fact that you pointed out to the fact that at least 100 civilians, mostly overwhelmingly civilians, many of them women and children, per day. And you said time is blood, and also like this quote, because it's very
pertinent.
It is. If we indeed review the number of casualties since the war started in October of 2023, and since it restarted in March of, or February of March of
when
this
Israel
year,
breached the agreement signed by previously agreed with.
Yes, and enforced by U.S. President Donald Trump, one day before he assumed office. The average number of casualties is 100, that's the average, almost 100 per day. And if we compare this to the population of Gaza, and we compare it to previous wars like World War II, like the Vietnam War, like you name it, that's one of the highest averages in history that can be
I read several statistics about the number and in kilograms, in tons actually, of bombs used in Gaza compared to the First and the Second World War combined, where they found that it's much higher in the duration. I mean, that the war took place, and in the surface. I mean, in the area. So actually what we are seeing is something of...
it's one of the worst massacres humankind has witnessed.
And that's why we are shocked here, and we don't know even what terms to use, because simply we haven't seen something, it's unprecedented. What we are seeing right now, right before our eyes, is unprecedented. And unfortunately, we do not see serious and concrete measures from the United States in first place, because they're both on the same term. They're both on the same wavelength. I mean, let's not fool ourselves by saying that the United States is against it. Maybe there is some misunderstanding, some discontent between the President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu. But the unwavering support of the United States to Israel, I mean, no matter what Israel will do, they will find people who are defending it. Until today, I mean, what worse could happen? I mean, like many TV presenters have said, how many more casualties do you have to see before you realize that this is a genocide and this is an attack that even the Israeli, some
former officials,
no, not just former officials, we're talking about former Prime Minister, Mr. Olmert, for instance, and Mr. Ehud Barak also, both of them have spoken against it, that this is a war without a goal, without an aim. And we don't know where we are going to reach.
They'll soon be accused of anti-Semitism.
Well, yes, actually, because I know some Israelis, since I served myself as in Israel, and when I show them this, they say, they have a term that they use, self-hating Jews. Those are self-hating Jews. So maybe it's just that they hate themselves.
Maybe it's just that they're like mankind. I mean,
it's just that whoever will say anything against Israel will be accused of being a self-hating Jew, because they cannot call him an anti-Semite, which is actually a stupid terminology that they are using. Because I am a Semite myself, you are a Semite, and we're all here in Egypt Semites. And if they are anti-Semites, so that means that they are anti-us, which does not apply. So I mean, this is a term that is actually wrongfully used for the privilege of the Jews. It's for all Semites, which includes the Arabs as well.
Very clear. Of course, this is the Business Insider program, but whenever we talk economy, the politics have to come. They always go in tandem. So I want to ask you, since you mentioned or you hinted at some differences between the U.S. President and the Israeli Premier, we are seeing now some, and of course these differences could be because of the direct negotiations the Americans are having with the Iranians, the Hamas, and the Houthis, where America was able to have its own deal with the Houthis. Disengages the Israelis from this, but Mr. Witkoff is engaged in negotiations now that are trying to reach some kind of deal that would bring at least a temporary halt of the gunfire, and then negotiations to try and reach a full ceasefire agreement. Do you see these negotiations? Because we've been hearing about this for weeks. But every other week we hear about something that is about to happen, and then Israel rejects, or we hear that Hamas refuses, and so on. Do you think we're going to reach anything tangible that would save lives soon enough?
Well, excuse my smile first. The reason why I smile, because this time, for the first time, we see both the Israelis and Hamas agree on the deal. And actually, when they observed this, they found that both had two different deals. That's the latest thing. Hamas have approved of a deal that was
presented to it, and it was different from the one presented to
Israel. And both accepted, and then when they tried to do it, Israel said, I did not accept this deal that was proposed to Hamas, and Hamas said the same thing. So it's always this vague thing, because we have hundreds of initiatives. They all lack an Israeli support, and that's why we keep on trying, we keep on modifying, so we don't know where we are. Until there is real pressure, and here we come again to the economic point of view, until we really have a real pressure, economically preferably, because this does not have to have blood on it, on Israel. Israel will not comply for several reasons. First of all, that this is, in all cases, it is the end of the current government of Hamas, of the extreme right. And
the extreme right, or just Netanyahu?
All of them, I believe that at this point, all of them will fall, because they keep sucking it until they kill it.
They'll fall in 26.
Exactly. So what I want to say here is that this government do not have any support, but at the same time, you cannot change a government in the time of the war. That's why the war has to continue. And it has to continue until we achieve something, so maybe then we will not be accused of negligence in the 7th of October. So this is the idea. And in order to do so, they are trying to kill as many Palestinians. Maybe among those we'll find the people, the real perpetrators of what happened in October 7th. And as we've seen atrocities. I mean, you heard, I'm sure, about the story about this mother who lost 9 of her children.
The doctor, yeah.
Yes, the doctor. I mean, this is a heartbreaking story. But I mean, Israel did not see in those...
There are many of these, unfortunately, too many
of these that haven't been unfolded before our eyes because of lack of maybe enough cameras or enough internet or whatever. But what I want to say is that Israel will not stop. It does not have the intention to stop before it can achieve any kind of victory to get back to its people, and maybe then they will forgive it for the negligence of the 7th of October. So that's why Netanyahu cannot stop. This is the other point we have to understand.
So are you afraid, Mr. Ambassador, that it's been 20 months now, or 21 months, it will be 21 months in a few days' time when we come to June. Are we going to be sitting here next year, I mean 12 months from now, and saying that the Palestinian death toll has now neared 100,000, and another mother has lost 5 and 7 children, and the humanitarian aid is not trickling enough, trickling in enough?
The answer is embedded in what you're saying. If there is not real pressure, then we will hear this and we'll be talking about the same thing next year. And actually, even if we reach a truce now, if we do not treat the cause of these massacres, which is the occupation, then we will sit here next year with another operation of, you name it, instead of Hamas, the Jihad, or a new group, or the Son of the Martyrs, who are going to raise to take vengeance for their families and so on. I mean, you name it, whether it has an Islamic background, whether it has a democratic background, whatever, but the idea of resistance will always be there because there is an occupation. And Israel do not have any intention, on the contrary, it's trying to squeeze the Palestinian between the Morag passage and the Philadelphia corridor, and that's why it will empty all the northern Gaza to occupy it. This is the idea of Israel. At least they could give their people something. Here is a new piece of land to annex to Israel, and that's why, if you remember, I said it several times on this show before. I said I need from Israel just one thing. Where
define
are
their borders.
Yeah,
remember.
Israel do not want to define its borders because they keep annexing. Is the new areas annexed from Syria, is it part of Israel or isn't it? In Lebanon, the same thing. In Palestine, the same thing.
And the Americans themselves don't know where Israel...
I don't want to speak about it.
Yeah, but where Israel has defined the borders, or whether they have.
And that's why we go again to the EU. The EU is only talking about diplomatic support, vague diplomatic support. Humanitarian aid, they talk about this a lot because this is the only thing that will not get them punished. Because they are afraid of the Jewish lobbies inside their countries. The Jewish are, I mean, we should not underestimate the Jewish presence in Europe. And especially that Europe have this feeling of guilt because of what happened during the Second World War, which I always tell any European I meet.
But in the U.S.,
this was not yours.
In the U.S., for instance, we've seen many Jewish groups against the Israeli war on Gaza.
Those are the self-hating Jews. Exactly. I mean, even from the, I mean, look at any senator or look at any congressman when they're faced with the atrocities committed by Israel. They just run away. They don't want to answer because they will say, and the one even from them who speaks, they speak out and say, yes, I support Israel, what it's doing in defending itself. Come on, I mean, we are over 60,000 now. They're still defending themselves against the 1,200 that were killed the 7th of October.
So the so-called of course, self-hating Jews, as the are not influential, as influential as the others who support the so-called Greater Israel?
Well, in the United States, it's a different issue. It's not like Europe, where the pressure is moral pressure. But in the U.S., it's a money thing. As you know, the AIPAC and the other Jewish organization, Jewish American organization in the U.S., are actually supporting their favorite candidates to win the elections. So, of course, the one who won the election basing himself on a donation from the AIPAC or from any kind of help that he received from any Jewish organization, he will not be the one to tell Israel no, of course, because as President Carter himself said it, he who dares oppose Israel, he will never be re-elected, and they will find someone else that they will support more and give him more money to win the election over the one who opposes Israel, to kick him out. So those are the people who decide the policy of the United States. They are both, simply. I cannot call them anything else. And unfortunately, this cannot be described as a foreign body who is buying politicians, because the AIPAC is registered as an American organization.
What about the situation in Europe?
Europe is different. It's a kind of harmony between the Jews and the Christians, who are the majority in Europe, and they have been, as I said from the beginning, they didn't have an independent policy towards the Middle East. They were always following the United States, but because of the pressure of the people, they start to deviate from the position of the United States. But as I said, they are giving just the sympathy words. But when it comes to the real thing, we haven't seen a real thing. Even France, who have said several times that it will recognize Palestine, now there is rumors that they might not recognize it now, and maybe they will wait a little bit more for a more adequate time. There is a real pressure. France or the UK are two very big countries and permanent members of the Security Council. And recognizing Palestine, the state of Palestine, will actually entail other countries to follow their footstep. And it's a dangerous step for the Europeans. That's why there is a lot of pressure against France and the UK not to recognize. And we'll see this in the coming summit, if they will recognize as they promised before, or they will say that...
Yeah, June is the expected time for this. This upcoming June.
Yes. But so far we don't know. There are many rumors. Even from the Prime Minister of France, we heard that they will recognize the Palestinian state, and there is some other rumors coming from the Elysee, the presidency, saying that maybe it's not the best time now, and maybe there is a better time. This is another diplomatic word for saying that we are under pressure and maybe will not recognize. We'll see the end of this game in June, when we'll see if they will.
But even if this happens, even if this happens and the Europeans, or at least the major European countries, adopt the Arab stance that the only way forward is the end of occupation, a peace road for the establishment of a viable and independent Palestinian state, and this is how we can end, this is the only thing that would guarantee just and lasting peace. Even if they adopt this, will this change anything on the ground in Gaza?
Well, unfortunately, I don't see this happening very soon. Still, on the short term, nothing much. But of course, it's more pressure. We already have 140-something countries who recognize the Palestinian state out of 180-something countries. So, the majority recognize the Palestinians. But of course, these are the most important players. Because why they're the most 50, important?
Or at least
yes,
the non...
because those are the Western countries who traditionally support Israel diplomatically and economically and military, of course. So these are the countries that are now in the balance. What will they do? Having said that, what will happen if the United States put real pressure on Israel, or if the stance of the United States change? Everything is going to change.
This is what could change the equation.
Yes.
But by the way, because we only have like 5 minutes or so left in the program, Yes, some trucks of humanitarian aid are beginning to enter Gaza, but this is nowhere near what they need. I mean, it's only 1% of what they need. It's only 5% of what they need. I mean, we've heard from the Palestinians themselves using the number 1%. This is 1% of what we need. So is this just a face-saving a measure from the part of the Israelis to try and trick everybody?
What I heard, and I'm not sure of these reports, that some of them, some of these containers contain diapers for children, and actually, you know, this cloth that they use to wrap people who are dead. I don't know what's called in English actually, but you know, it's a white cloth that they use to wrap the dead people.
Coffins?
Coffins, yes, but yes, coffins.
Okay.
And so this is part of the humanitarian aid that is getting in. I mean, don't fool yourself about quantities of food and drinkable water and all this.
Okay.
The EU will continue to talk about the necessity of having more food entering, and that they're doing very strong negotiation with Israel to allow more humanitarian aid, and so will the Americans speak. I mean, they want to switch the situation into a humanitarian natural crisis, while the only thing is to force Israel to stop bombarding.
Well, at least solve the humanitarian crisis, or try to solve it, because it's really heartbreaking for a news anchor to go every other day and read, like we've had 25 Palestinian children who died from starvation. 23 Palestinian children died from malnutrition.
Will you feel better if they feed them and then they shoot them and kill them?
At least feed them.
And kill them.
No, of course not.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. And that's why I'm waiting for a real pressure from the West. This pressure that they are claiming they are doing is not enough. And it's not leading to something. It doesn't really have a serious impact on Israel. Israel is still continuing. Israel is deploying all its units in Gaza. All its working units, its active units. We're not talking about the reserved. We're talking about the active units. All of them are in Gaza. So, I mean, is this a country who is planning to hold the war on any moment? Of course not. And our duty is to force it to comply. And since we are not providing it with weapons, the countries which are providing it with weapons are the ones who should put the pressure, or helping it economically, or providing it with a diplomatic coverage. All this is the West. Is the West serious about stopping Israel? Yes or no? This is the real question that we have to ask ourselves. If they are serious, I can just tell them one word: Ukraine.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador. It's always nice to listen to your thoughts. Ambassador Medhat al-Miligy, former Assistant Foreign Minister, thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you, dear viewers, for watching us. Please stay with Nile TV.